In this webinar, we are going to talk about resilience and adaptability in marketing. So I'm going to focus obviously on the marketing discipline, if you like, within business, but we're going to really be covering a host of different ideas, topics, techniques, and thinking that adapts really quite effectively in all forms of your life. And also if you're working in another discipline or you transfer over into something else from marketing, these things will still apply. So I'm going to give them a bit of a marketing spin, if you like, but they will be very applicable to you in whatever form of commercial life that you're leading in. So I've got about 20 items to share with you as we go through this. There's a whole host of different things that are going to be really relevant here. And it's almost like a checklist of things to consider. So some of these things will kind of really fit with your day-to-day working style. Some of the things will be a little more maybe strategic, so that they may require you to spend a little bit of time reflecting and seeing whether they fit. And some things, just by the nature of life, will not necessarily resonate with you. And that is fine. So what I'm not saying here is you have to do every single thing. And in fact, actually, there is a very, very simple, I guess you call it overarching principle to become more resilient and to be adaptable within all areas and all facets of your life. And I'm going to share that one with you right at the very end, because it is kind of the overarching one that really encapsulates everything. And it's a very simple principle that, to be fair, very few of us actually do, me included, at a very, very good high level. And it is so simple and so practical. So we'll get to that one when we arrive at it. First thing I want to share, sort of point one really, is about embracing what we might term a growth mindset. Now, this is really one of the foundations, if you like, one of the key pillars for resilience. A growth mindset really challenges or sees challenges really as opportunities to learn rather than from a fear perspective. So it doesn't see challenges as threats to be avoided. A very resilient and growth mindset works and kind of repositions and refocuses many things that you will find in your life. And there is a lot of research on this. Carol Dweck's research, for example, on a growth mindset really does support the idea that individuals who view things like setbacks as part of a broader learning experience are very, very able to adapt to what you might term high stakes situations. So when the going gets tough, they are just naturally more habituated to really seeing it as an opportunity rather than as something to fear. So think about growth mindset. Where are you on this spectrum of, really embracing every challenge as it comes, or literally putting your head down, closing your eyes and hoping it's going to go away? I'm not here to judge and say one or other end of the spectrum is right or wrong, but just being aware of where you are on a growth mindset opens up an opportunity maybe to explore maybe a little bit further in the direction of being really open to viewing a challenge as an opportunity. Staying updated with trends within your industry and within your sector is really, really important to maintaining a level of resilience and adaptability. I mean, what we're focusing in on here is really change, and it is that acceptance of change. So staying updated with the changes that are going to manifest in and around your sector, your role, your business, and the world around us. We've seen a lot of recent changes to, for example, the political system, both here in the UK and also in the US most recently, and how those things are going to play out at a macro level and impact on us. So staying informed about changes, about how your customers' preferences and behaviors are going to change. Obviously, things like technological advances and things like AI and the impact on us in our industries and us personally. Really, really important to regularly engage with what you might term reliable sources. So from a marketing perspective, things like the Harvard Business Review, marketing profs, HubSpot, a lot of these thought leaders and commentators and research houses who are producing reliable trend information. And this will, of course, when it comes to resilience and adaptability, enable you to anticipate shifts and potentially pivot your strategies and your plans effectively. And that will allow you to embrace change. Change is inevitable. Anybody who says, oh, I don't like change, I like a normal situation, well, they're really not realizing that it is just a natural part of life, both professionally and personally. So staying updated allows you to make more informed choices about how you're going to adapt and respond to those inevitable changes. The next one I would say, and again, leading on from that, is very much prioritizing some form of agility around those changes. So when you come to adapting your plans, and particularly if you're anything like me, you like a good plan, you like a nice itinerary, you like a menu of things that you're going to do, be it on holiday or in your working day. Being adaptable, though, and able and willing to be agile as well. So, not fixed within a plan, but allowing yourself to maybe break down longer term goals or activities into what we might term shorter sprints that will allow you then to adjust that little sprint. Maybe just as a little kind of short term interim temporary measure, still maybe having those longer term goals, but enabling you to be a little more flexible and fluid en route. Now, of course, just by saying those words, flexible and fluid, those sit really as really, really strong allies to resilience and adaptability. They kind of go hand in hand, don't they, when you think about those? So many companies, good examples, Spotify, use agile frameworks to stay responsive to market demands. So they're going to be constantly testing, constantly adjusting campaigns iteratively, in other words, as they go. So they don't, and again, as I say, it's very much me. I like to see the start, I like to see the end, and I kind of just have a preference to want to take that single route. But I've learned over the years that I need to work outside of that preference and sometimes flow and adapt as we go. If you can do that, you automatically raise your resilience because you are becoming more adaptable in that process. And by doing that, of course, you can be cultivating some kind of customer centricity. And what does that mean? Well, it means really focusing on those you're serving. Those can be internal customers, they might be external customers or clients. But if you understand and focus on their needs and be sympathetic and grateful to those offerings, if you like, and the value then that you can align with the things that your customers need, and by customers, I'm saying customers with a lowercase c. So the people that you serve and that you add value to. And if you're doing that, it enables you to become adaptable because you're looking to constantly ebb and flow, not to become sort of flitty and just sort of floating about in, an uncontrolled way, but making conscious decisions to go here and to go there, to do it this way and to do it that way. So you flow and ebb with the way that your customers' worlds are changing so that you can adapt as you go. So you can be using tools like surveys, maybe social listening if it's an actual customer, and of course things like data analytics to stay closely aligned and attuned to your customers' changing sentiment. So as they become more engaged with something, you can flow in that direction. If they need more information or knowledge served by you, or more help or adjustments in their world, you can again flow in those sorts of directions. We saw this beautifully outlined and highlighted during the pandemic. If you remember, brands like Zoom adjusting their messaging and features because in the moment they were needing to address to massively changing customer needs, such as remote work and education. If you can remember back to those times, brands like Zoom just jumped onto the opportunity of serving in a way that was, profoundly different to pre-pandemic. So again, just think about the way that you're operating with, serving, and communicating with customers. What kind of information are you gathering, and how are you using that to inform your adaptations to the kind of products and services that you offer up? That's obviously really, really important. This, of course, leads on to things like embracing the decision making that's driven by evidence. Now, we call this data driven decision making, but harnessing data, harnessing those kind of insights and analytics to inform your decisions to minimize risk. You become much more adaptable, much more resilient if you feel that you have evidence that's minimizing the risk. Because, of course, being non-resilient and being unadaptable means that actually you're probably living in fear. So if you're minimizing the risk, that fear drops. So if you can base your decision making, base your adjustments, base all these things to adapting to the change that we're talking about, based around evidence that you've captured, reliable evidence, not just, hearsay or kind of lip service or stuff like that. We're talking about reliable data and information that you can turn into intelligence to help your decision making. Platforms like Google Analytics for your website, HubSpot maybe for your socials, Tableau, and many others are available. These are providing insights into your changing environment for your customers, your campaign performance, etc., etc. And it offers up the opportunity to make real-time adjustments. So you can choose how deep you want to go into this. But for a lot of us who are now personalizing our customers' experiences because AI and the data and the technologies enable us to do that, we probably need to be adjusting and becoming resilient and being adaptable ourselves to keep up with that trend. So it's a big opportunity. It doesn't come without challenges of our time and our energy and our attention, but it could be really, really powerful. And once we've got those kinds of insights, we can then go to the next step. And again, this all feeds into becoming more resilient, becoming more adaptable, becoming more flexible in our responses to change. One of the things we can do is develop scenario planning skills. This isn't a new one, project planning that has contingency plans, targeting, sort of the changes that we might need to do to our processes or our systems has been part and parcel of project management forever. Tactical warfare planning goes back to the dawn of time, even, way beyond when we were commercial entities, doing business. So this stuff has been around for a long time, but scenario planning enables you to prepare for various future possible outcomes, which gives you a flexibility and a certain flexible outlook in your strategy. So you still might have this North Star, this ultimate goal that you're aiming for, but a flexibility in understanding that it could play out this way or it could play out that way. Almost kind of takes out the need to be rigid and stringent in just following one plan. If you've got a number of scenarios that take you to the same place, potentially, and these might be based on changes in your customer behavior, the economic shifts, political shifts, like I've just mentioned, technological advances, so emerging technologies that suddenly open up new ways, more effective, efficient ways of doing business. All of these things, or any of these things, can enable you to have a little play and develop some scenarios, those kind of what if questions that you can answer. And it is a little bit answering them, metaphorically, or it is answering them in a kind of well, okay, it might not happen, but if it does happen, how would we respond? How would we like to respond? What may that bring? We saw, again, going back to the pandemic times, many marketers adapted by preparing, multiple different advertising strategies of different, reopening phases, if you like, so that when they came back into business, they were ready, depending on when they came back and how they were going to come back. And we used the word pivot. Can you remember the word pivot in business before pandemic? No, I don't think it was actually in our narrative. But then as we went through there, we saw businesses pivoting, and they pivoted because they developed scenario planning, which enabled them to see, well, okay, if we use our skills and our competencies that we have to do something completely different, to serve up to completely different markets, but based on the skills and the value we bring, what would that look like? So they were doing scenario planning to kind of test the water and see what would happen. And of course, that gives you the confidence to be adaptable. It gives you that ability to be more resilient because you've forecasted already some of the likely outcomes. And another thing you can do, again, aligned with that, but as a standalone function, is to foster a collaborative team culture. This naturally will make you very, very resilient. This will naturally enable the skill sets, the core competencies to rise to the surface. And of course, in times of disruption, and let's face it, most of us are going through fundamental change, probably personally, but certainly professionally right now. We're seeing a lot of change in the world. through tech and through climate and through politics and the economic kind of cycles that we go through. So encouraging cross-functional teamwork will tap into diverse perspectives and expertise. This is going to open up the opportunity to have those deep conversations. Those why questions can be answered. Those what if scenarios can be plotted, not just from one perspective, but from multiple perspectives. And that's where stuff gets really exciting. You know, as an example, the brand Adobe promotes a collaborative culture where team members from different functions co-create campaigns to enhance adaptability. So there are businesses out there doing this very successfully. There are businesses out there who become resilient because of their adaptability, because they're doing this as a collective. So don't ever think that this stuff is just relating to you. It will relate to you and everyone else around you, and it gets exciting. And it enables the next thing on the list, which is rapid prototyping. You can do this in any form of marketing, but we certainly see this playing out nowadays within campaigns. And rapid prototyping, as the name suggests, allows you to test kind of new ideas, if you like, quickly and without a full launch. So we might also call this piloting. You might have heard it called that as well. It allows you to experiment with a small scale, kind of manageable test campaign, if you like. And then you can test, basically gathering the data, see what resonates before fully committing, getting those insights, getting the confidence to become adaptable and move things in a different direction. Nike is a great example. They're sort of well-published offering using rapid prototyping to test new ideas, new products, new ways of doing business with very limited releases before they'll do it at scale globally. So again, many, many different examples that you can research. But that phrase, rapid prototyping, that is by just definition a way of becoming very adaptable, responding to market trends, responding to new customer needs without revealing too much, without doing it full scale ahead. So again, gives you that confidence that when you do go for broke and you do scale it up, you're doing the right thing. And again, that word confidence comes through, doesn't it? Again, time and time again in this resilience and adaptability story. Part of that, of course, is going to include investment in continuous learning. And this really needs to be not just within your marketing strategy, although it is, of course, a core aspect of that as you're thinking through this, but right across your organization. And it is at every level. We often feel that, you know, continuous learning and training and development and stuff is for more junior staff, but certainly the examples I've seen where everybody in the organization, all the way through to the chief exec, is committed to continuous learning, both personally investing in training for themselves, as well as for their teams, as well as developing skills in emerging areas. And again, this whole thing about AI comes through loud and clear. There is no playbook. I hear myself saying this so often. There's no playbook for AI. So every organization is on a continuous learning and development journey with AI. How are we going to embed it? Where are we going to see best efficiencies? Is automation right for us now? How are we going to see this, you know, playing out for personalization in our customer experience? All of these questions will only be answered through a process of continuous learning. So if you want to take a little moment just here to reflect on your own, when was the last time you did some continuous learning? When did you plot this out? When did you actually reflect, look in the mirror and say, am I a bigger, better, greater, more valuable person than I was this time last week? If not, why not? If I am, how did I do it? What would I do differently next week? So self-reflection is absolutely key in here. And it doesn't have to come at a huge investment. I mean, we often find things like LinkedIn Learning, where if you go on there and see some of the courses there, you know, for free, you can enhance skills, you can be fostering this resilience, if you like, in the face of these rapidly changing opportunities. And notice what I did there, I used the word opportunity. Some people would say they're challenges, but if you're on this continuous learning journey, you're looking out for change. You're looking out for these opportunities because they're going to test you. They're going to open up those times and those moments where you are going to grow and develop personally, but also it becomes infectious. The people around you will also embrace this. And so it does get really interesting as you see this rolling out for others too. And it will encourage you and others to really embrace creative problem solving, because adaptability often requires this. It requires creative thinking. So in your team meetings, rather than just reporting on what you did last month and getting your plans ready for next time, why don't you start to increase and include things like problem solving, brainstorming and workshopping, challenges your team to think outside the box. I mean, Lego do this a lot. Part of their culture of creative problem solving allows it to remain flexible and innovative. So it's adapting product lines based on emerging trends by bringing these searching, really kind of challenging questions to the team meetings that they have. And it becomes part and parcel of the culture, this whole idea that we are constantly moving, we're constantly in a state of flux, and it's a good thing. The core of our business is probably quite sound, but around the periphery, there's opportunities to grow and develop as a business, but also as individuals. So encouraging creative problem solving, and you do not have to get it all right. That's again something that we'll talk about in a minute, because it's important to be embracing whatever happens, because as we know, and it sounds a bit of a cliche, but it's so true, every moment, every outcome is a learning opportunity. And this has never been more true than when we think about utilizing social listening tools. If you want to really keep your ear to the ground, and this is kind of where social listening came in, and it's a principle that you can use with your customers across your social channels. It enables you to monitor the public sentiment, if you like, in real time, which of course in itself gives you an edge responding to trends and issues quickly. If you spot there's a hot topic, you can run a social media post. If you see there's a trend towards a need in the market that isn't being served, you can develop a quick campaign. So tools like Brandwatch or Sprout Social provide insights into what your customers are discussing, helping you to adjust your message and remain relevant. And again, by default, that gives you a positive competitive edge. And you can, of course, use these kinds of principles to just keeping your ear to the ground or your eyes open to opportunity internally within your team. So always being alert to moments where somebody just happens to just do that little throwaway comment and you think, hold on, nobody else has picked that up. I'm going to take that one. I'm going to challenge that one back. I'm going to bring that to the next meeting and let's go deeper into that. That was interesting. So always being curious, always open to the opportunities that just most people would not seize on or grab. These great ideas will just float by. Again, there's research, science behind this. The idea is there, it's been put out into the wide world, and somebody, if they don't grab it, will miss it and it's gone. And that idea will never be seen again until somebody else, happens to just, come up with it. But if you can grab these ideas, so constantly listening. This is really my personal definition of when I say mindful marketing. It's just being mindful. It's just being conscious of the opportunities that are around us. So maybe one of the things that we can do is always, every day, be on the lookout for maybe 3 things that come at us, either through customers or colleagues or suppliers. Can come from any different angle, maybe through the media. Maybe you're looking and reading and researching stuff, and suddenly there's a little sign or there's a little flag that just gets your attention. You think, hold on a minute, there's something in that. It's not a snapshot in time. I'm seeing a pattern or I'm seeing a trend. Those things are like gold dust, not only to you and your development, but also for your business. So social listening, another great way of building resilience and adaptability. And by definition, this does really require you to build what we might call a strong digital ecosystem. So you really want to surround yourself. And I think for me, this is where you can do this on a business level, but I would always encourage people to do this on a personal level. Have around you. And again, it's so much easier now doing this with your little AI assistants, ChatGPT, Perplexity. Get them doing these tasks for you. Fire them up with little prompts that enable them to go off and work their magic and do the hard yards. So you can do the analysis, not the findings. That's the key. You're going to analyze the stuff that comes in. So building a strong digital ecosystem, encompassing things like your website, social media, email, CRM, this all supports adaptability. If one channel faces challenges, like say your social media might suddenly go down or your website's struggling or isn't performing as it could do, you can still engage through other touch points. Obviously integrators or sort of integrated systems like HubSpot are platforms that will exemplify this, and they become very robust digital ecosystems that enable you then to continually have an open channel to the marketplace or to your audience. No matter whether one channel goes down, you've still got others. So there's built-in kind of contingency planning, built-in resilience, if you like, within your tech, but surrounding yourself with this constant feed, not so it becomes a noise and becomes a pain, but so that it becomes just a level of confidence that, yeah, when I need to, I'm always tapped into the environment. So that if my line manager says, hey, Neil, can you give me a view on this particular topic? Or, you're doing this particular campaign. Can you tell me how we're doing? You've always got that data and information to hand. That enables you to be adaptable, but it also builds a confidence and a resilience in you because you think, I'm prepared. It is simply that phrase, I am prepared. I know that the stuff that's going on, I can see the trends, I've got the data and the evidence to back it up. I'm ready. I'm ready. It's as simple as that. That's what we're looking for here. Anybody who's on the back foot when challenged with a question has got work to do. Now, I'm not saying you've got to be perfect. I'm not saying you've got to know everything about everything all the time, but having this ecosystem around you, having this feed of insights and data, bookmarking the important stuff and checking in with it, maybe first thing on a Monday morning as you prepare your week, or last thing on a Friday as you're prepping for the coming month or something like that. Just going to your ecosystem and thinking and looking and saying, okay, I've got the latest version, I've got the latest data, I am well prepared, my evidence is strong. That is resilience. That's adaptability. It's not necessarily about a behavior, it's about developing a really strong habit. And then, of course, you're well prepared for when things don't go right. We call this crisis management or crisis communication, if you like, if you're in PR circles. Being prepared for the unexpected, those crises that happen, is absolutely critical. But by this point, if you're doing any of the above, you're going to be much better prepared than you probably were, or than your other colleagues might be as well. So creating protocols that then allow you to respond to crises such as PR issues or maybe supply chain disruptions, where you've got the right people in place ready to go at a moment's notice. You've got the channels all set up. We've seen this, through countless different examples where organizations are able to respond to some bad press or some bad coverage or maybe some bad news, or just something happens in the market. Nobody else responds. One brand does effectively, and they steal a lead. And why? Because they're prepared. Why? Because they're resilient. Why? Because they've already planned in that adaptability to the change. And of course, a crisis means everything's changed. A crisis is a red flag that says, stop what you're doing and respond. But it doesn't mean then that you're running around like a headless chicken thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what we're going to do. It means that you can calmly take a breath, saying, okay, we're now in that situation. Let's gather the evidence. We've already got it. We know what the trends are. We've already got our plan for how we're going to respond. Now let's confidently and assertively respond. This can happen internally. Sometimes you get somebody running around in a mad panic because something was missed on the checklist, or you've got a big event or something coming up and, oh my goodness, we forgot to do such and such. But not you. You're ready. You're resilient. You're adaptable. You can respond in that moment because you're prepared. You've got the evidence. You've got the backup. You've got the plan and the way that you're going to solve it. So having all of that stuff in advance is absolutely key. What you don't want to be doing is using the word busy. You don't want to be using the word frenetic or hectic. You want to be calm, assertive, and confident. That is about being resilient and adaptable. And it gives you a chance as well, as we've been doing with all these things, to just kind of test it in a gentle, carefully controlled pilot kind of way. This kind of test and learn approach is so, so important. We see this stuff, and you may well, if you're doing studies here at the college, you may well have understood this term A/B testing, where you're trialing, different ideas with just one thing different so you can prove which is the better version. This is what we're doing at this stage. Organizations like Google, for example, have got a well-published 20% time policy, allowing employees and staff and teams to work on side projects, encouraging innovation, rapid testing of new ideas, test and learn, test and learn. And not just learning for the sake of learning, but actually using it to make incremental gains. The most resilient and adaptable organizations do not have revolutions within their organization. They are evolving. 1% incremental gains is the way forward. And that comes from a test and learn approach, evidence-based, data-driven, confident, assertive, and assured. This is resilient and adaptable behavior. So that might be something you might want to factor in, making sure you've got a little bit of, call it spare time, but a little bit of contingency time that enables you to do this stuff in advance. Because let's face it, by now, I think we're probably agreeing, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're probably agreeing that being forearmed is better than being in a panic situation. So that's what we're actually committing to. So if you like the sound of it, you've got to make the time to do it. That's key. And all the time, it is about remaining and maintaining transparency as far as you can with your audience, be they internal or external. Because during times of change, all the change that we've been talking about, technological, political, economic, climate, transparent communication with your customers, internal customers, your line manager, your CEO, the board, the management team, and external parties, the stakeholders around your organization. This will build trust. Brands that honestly address challenges and share their plans to resolve them emerge stronger in their sectors. And individuals within teams, within organizations, tend to have better career progression when they're honest, trustworthy, and transparent. They share what they're doing. They don't, deny vulnerability. They don't say they're perfect and then, shrug off all the challenges and just try and kind of fake it till they make it. They're honest about their progress and their journey, and that becomes part of them. And people respond to the human in that. So think about how transparent you are with your audiences. Is there more that you could do? Could you embrace vulnerability? Seek specialist support. Seek help when you're feeling a little out of your depth because you need to call on some specialist skills that you don't have, but you're going to factor those into your continuous learning plan. Nobody can say, oh, Neil, you didn't do well enough at that. If you're committing to learn and develop, because everybody knows nobody's perfect, but it's the people who try and hide that away and sort of say, oh, yeah, I'm fine at this. I can do this. I can do this. Eventually they get caught out, but nobody actually believes them because we all know intuitively that cannot be the case. So let's reflect that in our communications. Airbnb's CEO, Brian Chesky, maintains that transparency with hosts and guests during the pandemic really reinforced trust in the brand. And just look how that has expanded and grown globally as a brand as a result of that. It's not the only thing, great product and service, of course, as well. But in terms of the brand profile, it really adds that next layer of authenticity, if you like, to it. So a lot of this is what we're talking about here really is about developing personal resilience. Resilient marketers, as resilience in any discipline really, often possess strong stress management and adaptability skills. We're not saying that you've got to be a perfect human being. We're not saying that you've got to be flawless, but just engaging in practice that strengthens mental resilience, such as mindfulness. There's the word mindful again, just conscious, decision making and just being aware and awake all the time. And great time management techniques. Studies by the American Psychological Association show that resilient individuals consistently handle stress and change more effectively to the point of embracing it. They know that time is our most precious commodity. They know that things aren't always going to go right, but they're just well prepared. They take it on the chin. They take the deep breath. They make conscious decisions. They don't panic. This is what a resilient individual does, and it's a great thing to aspire to. It feels good intuitively, doesn't it, to think, wow, I'd love to be that person who just doesn't flap under any kind of pressure. That doesn't mean they've got to say yes to stuff. It means they're probably saying no, and the right kind of no to many things that aren't high priority or that don't add so much value. And maybe that's, again, part of this. But one of the things that is really important in this journey is building what we would call strategic partnerships, again, with all forms of stakeholders, internally and externally. To be resilient and adaptable, you cannot, and you have to accept that you cannot be an expert in everything. There used to be an adage that in sort of people development in business, it was all about training up to, beat your weaknesses and get really good at everything. We've since really realized that actually, no, it's about playing to your strengths. It's about playing to your preferences. It's about maybe infilling and backfilling the weaknesses by getting specialist strategic partners in to do those things, because we can't be amazing at everything, but we can be amazing at where we add the most value. So if you can collaborate with companies, with businesses, with brands and individuals that complement the offerings that you have, then when you need, specialist support in particularly times of crisis, you will know that you have some people you can call on, trusted partners who will be there for you. And likewise, you can be there for them, offering the same return of value, if you like, back to them. So, of course, it all starts with you, as it starts with me in my own journey. So think about, if I was offering up a strategic partnership as an individual, what would I be offering to my partner? So as much as I need to find the things to infill my weaknesses and the areas where I need some support, think about what I'm actually bringing. So I'd like you to do this and reflect on this too. Think about, where do I add the most value? Where do people often give me the most kind of encouragement that, hey, you did a great job there. And wow, that was so helpful and so useful. And wow, I didn't realize you were as good at that as you are. Think about where you've had those kind of pieces of feedback, because that's likely to be where you're adding most value to the world around you. And then you can then start to work offering those pieces of strategic value, if you like, in a trade. And it is a conversation and it is a trade, because strategic partnerships are collaborations. The most resilient, adaptable people know they can't do it all and they can't do it alone. So they are building those kinds of partnerships up. And that's really, really important. And when it comes to kind of, the more practical side of things like marketing and communications, and, for some of us, we're really, really into the production of stuff. Tactically, we're doing campaigns, running events, hosting podcasts, doing webinars, et cetera, a whole bunch of stuff that we do as marketers. The whole idea that we can actually repurpose a lot of what we do comes as a great example for resilience, because often we start to work on solving a particular challenge by beginning from ground zero. So our boss, a line manager, chief exec comes to us and says, oh, can you do this? Can you solve this problem? Or can you run this particular event or campaign? And we often result back to zero, whereas actually, is there stuff we could repurpose from what we've done before? Because if we've done any of these things that I'm talking about, then we've got great examples and evidence that can get us off the starting blocks at a pace. We can actually hit the ground running because, well, yeah, okay, we've done this before. We've seen what works. We've done our pilot studies. And repurposing what you've learned and what you've done, sharing that journey with others, is a really, really important thing, because we're going to have to make some time. We're going to have to get some resource. We're going to have to get some space to do all this stuff and become more resilient and adaptable. So what can you repurpose that you've already got? A simple, from a marketing comms perspective, a simple example is when we create shorts out of long form video. Simple example of repurposing our content. Super efficient, really, really useful because it's on brand, it's on story, because it's part of the original piece. But to be resilient and adaptable, we can use all of these things in a similar kind of way. So what could you bring out of what you did last week to support you and others around you next week? What do you already know that you could share with others? What could you repurpose? Could you bring back to life? For me, as a simple example, and I do this all the time, is I'm bringing some of my podcast episodes, which are maybe 2-3 years old, back into the mainstream, and I'm talking about them, I'm promoting them with little shorts, because they're still relevant, they're still adding a lot of value. And it means then I don't have to record a new episode. Well, why would I? Because I've already got the answer. And it was this great guest saying this amazing thing. Well, let's just bring it back and repurpose it. So we can do this and really just have to be awake and mindful that these things are available to us. So look back and think what great, valuable things that you've done. And if you're currently studying, you're probably producing a portfolio. What could you bring out of that? If you're studying, you're probably doing reflective notes. What do you find in there that you could actually bring out and repurpose? we've probably got many of the answers already and at our disposal. So it's really important that we don't think of this as being all brand new, because the chances are it's not. The chances are we've already got most of this stuff ready for us. And as we measure and reflect on all the key things, think about our key performance indicators. These are the things that we need to be obsessing about. As much as we haven't got unlimited time, as much as we don't have unlimited resources, we've also got to keep a focus to be resilient and adaptable, keep a focus on where our goals and our strategic aims are. Personally, what's your career plan? What is your career progression? What are your KPIs for that? Your key performance indicators, the things that are the flags that show you are on track. And also for your business and your team and your brands and your products and your services, all the stuff that you do, each one of those things has to have some key performance indicators. They are probably green, amber, red, just little flags, little traffic lights that just show, yeah, on all of these, I'm pretty well green, I'm on track. But this one's gone amber because I've fallen behind, or this one's gone amber because I haven't done enough research, or this one's gone amber because the market changed and I didn't adapt, or I just haven't given it enough attention. So therefore it's gone amber. It used to be green, now it's amber. So what am I going to do? And so constantly measuring and reflecting on these KPIs enables you to have that confidence that you've got this. So you become, by definition, then more resilient and more adaptable, because you always have that phrase, your finger on the pulse of actually what it is that you're doing, the why, where you're adding most value. And let's face it, that guiding light, that North Star towards your higher purpose. So it's really, really important. And ultimately, what we're doing here, both internally for us as individuals, but also collectively, if we're doing this as part of a team or as part of a business, is we're fostering an innovative culture. We're building those habits, that culture that encourages adaptability by promoting the free exchange of ideas and a willingness to try new stuff, whatever it is, a campaign, a system, a process, a technology, an app on our phone, whatever it happens to be. Opening in innovation and actually getting everybody to pitch in and give you feedback on stuff as it goes. This is well proven science. The research has really borne this out over the decades. Innovative cultures are more resilient and more adaptable, period. It's as simple as that. And if you can basically bring that into your everyday working life, into your mindset, really, and just start to kind of watch what happens and see the opportunities that suddenly appear in front of you, you will see the evidence for yourself. It really is as simple as that. And I say simple because there's 20 strategies that are going to help you build some resilience and adaptability in not only your marketing, but also your personal efforts. But it is about developing this growth mindset. So investing in continuous learning is a key point here. Really, really want you to remember that one. Fostering collaboration, knowing there are people around you who are going to jump up and, hit the plate with you here. That's key. So getting them on side and supporting them because they'll want to do this too. The right kind of people will come on this journey with you because they'll want to be part of the action and they'll be doing it too. Adopting a data-driven and agile approach is key. I think we've kind of sold that one in as we've been talking here. And then you can turn challenges, whatever you face, and believe me, it is whatever you face, into an opportunity to adapt differently next time from the learning of this time. And this will offer you up step-by-step opportunities to navigate any disruptions that come at you confidently and position yourself in your career and your brand in your market for long-term success. So I would say if you can get maybe 4 or 5 of those things that we've talked about and start to build some habits around those things, you will be very, very well prepared. But I said I'd leave you with a final thought. Now, this comes from somebody who is well worth doing a search on and listening to some of the things that he sort of talks about. This guy, Gregg Braden, is one of my favorites, I have to say. He is a great thought leader. He's a philosopher. He's a scientist. And his philosophy, and he makes this very, very clear in a lot of the work that he does, is that resilience thrives when we build spare capacity into our daily lives. And what we mean by that is setting aside time to pause, to reflect, and to recharge. So by integrating moments of stillness and intentional breaks, you're going to create some space to process challenges calmly and make more considered decisions. So the practice of spare capacity, creating that spare capacity, adding margin into your daily life, not only preserves your energy, but also strengthens your ability to adapt thoughtfully, navigate disruptions with ease, and respond to new opportunities with clarity. And here's the important bit, and creativity. And what a lovely way to be able to lead your life. So I'd recommend you go and have a look at some of Gregg Braden's work. It's a really profound new insight and way of being. There are many others who kind of follow his kind of train of thought and his kind of school of practice, if you like. And he works around this concept of heart coherence, where we're actually working from a much higher place. We're not just looking at things as activities. We're coming from a very different space, which is very heart driven. And I'll leave you to explore that to your heart's content. There we go, to kind of round that one off quite nicely. But I do think if you can create some of this spare capacity in your world professionally and personally, and as I say this, I find myself looking in the mirror. My wife would say, Neil, that is something for you to do too, because you cram your life way too full with stuff that doesn't enable you to do this properly. So you talk a good story, Neil, but you've got to put this into practice too. So I am genuinely trying my best to increase my spare capacity into my life too. So I'll do this with you. Okay. So if you'll commit to this, I'm going to commit to this now. Taking time to set aside to pause, to reflect, and to recharge.